Good morning to everybody. So we arrived to the end of our conference. Today we will have a very interesting and thought-provoking conversation between a researcher of the Royal University of Bhutan and a Californian entrepreneur, founder of a for-profit impact venture in Bhutan. As you know, in Bhutan, the philosophy that guides the national government is the gross national happiness, considered to be more important than the gross domestic product. It includes an index which is used to measure the collective happiness and well-being of a population. And Gross National Happiness Index is instituted as the goal of the government of Bhutan in the national constitution. It is based on 4 factors, which are sustainable and equitable socio-economic development, environmental conservation, preservation and promotion of culture, and good governance. We will explore with our guest the fundamentals of this philosophy and answer to the question if an alternative, sustainable economy based on equality is possible. So now I will introduce our first guest, is Dr. Sonam Nyenda of the Royal University of Bhutan. He joined the Department of History and Culture in the College of Language and Culture Studies in 2011. He has a Master in Religion Studies from the University of Colorado. His field of study is the Himalayan Buddhist art and ritual literature. So in 2017, Nyenda founded the Bhutan and the Malayan Research Center at the College of Language and Cultural Studies of the Royal University of Bhutan, where he organizes lectures, talks, and research workshops and projects. And he is currently working to publish the first issue of the International Journal of Bhutan and Himalayan Research, and he is also the founding member of the Bhutan Nyo Foundation. So please, Dr. Nyenda, the floor is yours.
Kuzuzangbo, Tashidele, and hello to everyone. I would like to first start with thanking the organizers for putting together this wonderful conference on the Buddhist views of interdependence in the contemporary world. I would like to thank Professor Giacomella and Andrea Dell'Angelo for inviting me to this conference. My name is Sonam Nyenda, and I am an associate lecturer at the College of Language and Culture Studies, Royal University of Bhutan. When I was invited to the conference by Professor Giacomella and Mr. Andrea, I was asked to be on an economy panel. I was excited to accept the invitation, but did not exactly know what I am actually going to talk about. I am not an economist. I am a I am a religious studies student, I would rather say, and I'm interested in studying Tantric Buddhism and the knowledge and wisdom in the Buddhist studies, and how those knowledge and wisdom would contribute to shape the Bhutanese and Himalayan culture, and how it is still contributing to reshape Bhutanese and Himalayan culture today. So anyways, thinking through what to talk about for this conference, and to offer some of my thoughts on the Buddhist interdependence, I chose to call my presentation as the principle of human happiness, eavesdropping to Buddhist wisdom for better future. This is not a complete research product, so I would really appreciate your feedback and comments later. The world, I think, and its the world and its content from content in all forms have been evolving from the very beginning. The evolution has been characterized by development of human society, flourishing upon the economical norms, socio-cultural norms, and values in harmony to ecological nourishment. However, evolution has arrived to a threshold of a world advanced in technology, economy, and politics, which often pushes humanity to the edge. It is this world, I think, is ailed spiritually and morally, which might find therapeutic solace in Buddhist wisdom of collective, collective happiness. So, to offer you my perspective on collectiveness and harmony, I thought I would talk a little bit about um, Bhutanese gift system, a traditional practice of Bhutanese gift system. Back then, when economy wasn't very well in Bhutanese society, the gift system is an alternative to keep villages sustainable. Because, for example, as I have put in here, there are so many other um, culture of gift, but I have noted down some, which one of those is lamju. Lamju is a parting gift that you give to someone who leaves from your village to a newer destination. For example, if I go to a conference in Italy, some of my friends, relatives, or neighbors in the village would come and like give me some parting gift, which I might take to Italy to give it as a gift to someone I know in Italy. And Chom is a gift that I would bring back to my villagers and relatives from Italy, something that would be useful to them. And parcel is and lakta is a parcel that you send to your friends, families who lives away from you. So when we look at that system, there is no there is a transaction which does not have the idea of buying and selling, but it has the concept of sharing and love and compassion. I call it the economy of love, compassion, and harmony, because as you share this gift and help each other, there is also a bondness that you like create among the society, and create the harmony in the society and the community. And during those days, people lived in people lived like simple lives where they are like fine with what they had, even though they are not rich, they are fine with what they had. And there was a contentment in what they had, and they found happiness in their contentment. And this is a phrase from a Bhutanese folk song. And then this phrase like reflects about the Bhutanese contentment and Bhutanese happiness. The phrase says, "Do sem na tapo ngalami, kang hamchu jung na tapore, de ze na nebo ngalami, chu meshing jung na nebore," which semantically translates as to set on a journey, I don't have a steed, but if I have a pair of shoes, it's worth the one. To stay back, I don't have a host, but if I have a wood, water, and fire, it's worth a host. So this phrase reflects about Bhutanese interdependence, Bhutanese contentment, and happiness in here. However, today, when we look at modern development, we see like these ideas, these concepts, these notion of harmony and kindness are slowly declining. For example, when I was a little kid, my parents were constructing their house for the family. And I remember my villagers and other people from other villages also like came to help my parents to build a house. That is a free contribution to my family. and there is the sharing of love and compassion. And then therefore my family don't have to pay them. The list that my family would offer is food and refreshment when they were working, and people would stay back, and then when the house is completed, people come to celebrate together, and these things has happened. But now, after more than 2.5 decades, we find this kind of culture very less. Today, if I go back to my village, we are constructing some houses for my family monastery there. And there are very rare people who come to contribute. We have to find laborers, and laborers today, uh, even the unskilled laborer, we have to pay around 700 to 800 Bhutanese ngultram per day, which is huge by Bhutanese standard. So, which means the idea and concept of living harmony is losing like slowly. So, and that made me think what is happening in the process of history, what is happening in the process of development. And I thought I thought we will reflect to the go back into the history and look at the history. So if we look at the history, the world and its content has evolved through so many progressions as well as crises. Nevertheless, when the world faced crises, there were also corrective responses, either by the society or by some of the extraordinary influential like figures of that particular time. So if we quickly run through history, um, one of the foremost civilizations that happened in Indian subcontinent is the Indus Valley civilization. It was in the third millennium BC. Indus Valley civilization is a very highly developed civilization that existed in the Indian subcontinent approximately between years 2500 to 700 BCE. And you can see that Indus Valley was highly developed in terms of both material and spiritual aspects. When archaeologists excavated and studied those sites, they did not find weapon or differences between the sizes of the buildings or concepts of geographical boundaries, which means that during the Indus Valley civilization, people or the citizens of that civilization lived in like sheer harmony. But down the line, if we look at the Vedic period, it happened approximately between the years 1800 and 1500 BC, and that was the time when the Aryans or the nomadic, pastoral, warlike, expanding pioneers civilization in the course of their migration destroyed the Indus Valley civilization. So, to those Aryans, they had faith in number of gods who are personified in natural phenomena, and they had a religious setup in which priest is the most important figure. So therefore, there was the social strata that built up during that time. And then the Brahmins were considered the most highest in the social strata because they were reading the Vedic scriptures and interpreting those scriptures, and they were understood to be the mediators between the god and human beings. And therefore, there was Kshatriyas, the warriors and kings, who waged war with their enemies and brought spoils in the community. And then was the Vishyas, or the merchants and landlords, and then the Shudras. And then there was even section of people who are understood to be untouchables, which is who are outcasted from the ordinary like people. So if we look at that, there was a certain kind of like disharmony that has like happened in the society at that period of time, and and therefore the time at that point of time, it needed some kind of attention to understand what was going on at that point of time. So therefore, you can see at towards the end of the Vedic period, there were unpopularity among the understanding of the Varna or the caste system that they had in India. And then, of course, because of the existence of gods and then notion of gods, and then taking refuge and protection from the god, people were trying to appease those gods with the animal sacrifices. Those were also certain things that humanity had to think and contemplate at that point of time. And then there were also increase in material wealth through the rapid agrarian expansion, because by that time there were also the notions of boundary, like this is like my part of field, that is your part of field, mine and yours, and then there were division happening in the society. So therefore, in the 6th century, um, when a prince called Siddhartha Gautama was born to a king and then was raised in the four walls of the palace, um, he was also ignorant about all those things that were happening in the society. But once he like ran out of the palace and understood the sufferings of human beings, where he the understands about the birth and death and suffering of human beings, and when he understood the whole um, issues that were going through in that society, he contemplated and understood that why there needs to be like differences between among the same human beings if all human beings have to suffer the same suffering. So therefore, as he contemplated and tried to look for the solution, he somehow finds the idea of the Four Noble Truths. And then that was his philosophy and principle of understanding the notion of living in harmony once again. So that was that from my point of view, from my perspective, that was a respond to uh, the crisis, spiritual crisis that was happening during the Vedic period. But however, um, the civilization did not only happen in Indian subcontinent; it was happening all over the world. For example, there was also Mesopotamian civilization happening in the West, and then from China and elsewhere. And if we look at the development today, the idea and notion of development all over the world is influenced by the Western idea of development. And and the and today the idea of modernization refers to a model of a progressive transition from a pre-modern or traditional to a modern society. And some of the modernization theories also looks at the internal factors of a country, while assuming that with assistance, so-called traditional countries can be brought to development in the same manner more developed countries have been, which in my understanding is that some of the traditional ideas are not fit in the modern concept. And so to understand with that understanding, with that theory of modernization and understanding of the world's progression, in 1934, Simon Kuznets developed the modern concept of gross domestic product, which was offered as the indicator of a country or a nation's progression, which means if a country is economically like sound or economically doing well, that means that the country is progressing well, or the country is progressing in the right direction, which I think is which most of the scholars or academics now thinks is not like um, totally acceptable, because because even if we look through even if we look through a individual um, um, lives. For example, there might be some individuals who are wealthy enough. They have like huge wealth in their family, but may not be having a children who would inherit their wealth, and then who may not be happy in their big houses with like lots of cars and lots of dollars. Or somebody might be sick and is unhappy even though if he has wealth. So therefore it does not necessarily say that the family is progressive just by having a wealth. So which means happiness is more important than uh, than the economy itself. So therefore, if we look into the Buddhist ideas, Buddhist principles, the contribution of Buddhist wisdom to the world from very beginning until today is the idea of living in harmony. According to it, the primary source of happiness, the common goal of humanity, is the societal harmony. On contrary, the world is challenged by decadence of collective sense, where greed for power and wealth has bred individualism in terms of individual person, society, and nation. So the world today, therefore, is in need of wisdom, which could benefit in balancing human ecology, focusing focusing on harmonizing the globe in spirit and in action. And it appears that wisdom is in the knowledge, in the Buddhist knowledge and wisdom. So therefore, a Dharma king, a Buddhist Dharma king, uh, responded to that by offering an alternative paradigm to the uh, to indicate the progression of the growth of progression of the nation. So the alternative is called as GNH, or gross national happiness. That happened when His Majesty, the fourth king of Bhutan, was asked by an international journalist in 1972, when he was asked about what was the GDP of his country. He consciously said that GDP is not important for Bhutan, but however, whether his citizens are happy or not, gross national happiness is more important for him. That was his response to to the journalist, but it was actually a response to the world at that point of time, because all the world is going through a direction where GDP is considered more important, and GDP is considered as the indicator of the progression. So if you look at the GNH, GNH, if you look at the GNH is used as a guiding principle for all developmental activities in Bhutan today, and it has 4 pillars and 9 domains, which are the measurement and screening tools of GNH. So the 4 pillars are good governance, sustainable economic development, cultural preservation, and environmental conservation. And these 4 pillars are further elaborated into 9 domains, which is used as the measurement and screening tools. So the 9 domains are living standard, education, health, environment, community vitality, time use, psychological well-being, good governance, and cultural resilience and promotion. So, from the perspective of GNH, these domains show that many interrelated factors are important in creating the condition for happiness. So even today, when every 5 years, when a new government is formed in Bhutan, any kind of developmental activities, their mission and vision needs to be aligned with the guiding principles of GNH, which is uh, looked at or screened by a commission called Gross National Happiness Commission, which uh, uh, which is an office in the capital who looks after all those developmental activities, whether it is aligned with the GNH principles or not. So, anyways, for the for the time for anyways today the this is our third democratically elected government that we are having, and um, for their 5 year plan, their manifesto is to bridge the gap between the poor and the rich, and so as to create a social balance in the country as a core strategy to enhance societal harmony, and to define the understanding of their societal harmony. The definition is a society where every individual lives in harmony with oneself, community, nature, and tradition. So um, so therefore, you can see that Bhutan focuses on invoking human goodness to enable harmonious society. This is also the spirit and virtue the Himalayan communities had been commonly sharing, which I think the world could draw benefit from. So, anyways, I want to end my end my presentation by saying that love, compassion, and spiritual understanding of interdependence would be should be the future of a harmonious society, where we don't reduce cultural practices like gift system to irrelevant traditions, which has the potential to create harmony in society. Of course, this kind of system might have evolved in a newer ways. We might hear some of these newer ways of this system in our next speaker's presentation when he talks about how uh, his organization is contributing to the communities that he works with. So, anyways, thank you. This is end of my presentation, and thank you very much, and thank you for the audience. And I hope to get some comments and feedbacks from you. Thank you very much, and continue.
So now we start with the second presentation. I would like to introduce our guest, Daniel Spitzer. Daniel Spitzer and his wife, Teresa Lowe, co-founded Mountain Hazelnuts, a for-profit impact venture in Bhutan. It is a Bhutanese first 100% foreign direct investment. Mountain Hazelnuts is planting 10 million hazelnut trees on degraded mountainside, doubling the income of tens of to thousands of subsistence households. It provides a sustainable income for the nation's most vulnerable communities while preserving cultural traditions, rehabilitating fragile ecosystems, and sequestering CO2. Mountain Hazelnuts has grown to become Bhutan's largest private sector employer, with women comprising nearly half of the company's workforce. Prior to Mountain Hazelnuts, Daniel founded Plantation Timber Product Group in 1993, which he built into China's largest sustainable forestry company. Earlier in his career, he was partner and managing director of a private equity investment company after serving as CEO of the Asian operation of a global merchant bank. He received his BA from the University of California and in Berkeley and a MA from Stanford University. So it's a very great honor for me to have it with us today. So please, Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thank you for joining me today. My name is Daniel Spitzer. And thank you for sharing the aspirations and motivation to benefit all beings, because that's what we are doing. My presentation is about a path that is different from many of yours, but started with the same kinds of inspirations for most of you. I'm now going to say goodbye to you and move to images, which I think you'll find far more interesting. Thank you so much. I'm first grateful to the organizers who I met in the 1970s in northern India with Namkha Norbu Rinpoche, tendril, or connections that have continued with our parallel work through the years. Every story has a beginning and a seed. And my story starts with my teacher. We talk about lineage and commitment, or damsik, as essential to the path. For me, Chatra Rinpoche changed trajectory and direction of my life. After studying with him and other masters for years, I expected a life of retreat and scholarship. Instead, I've spent nearly 3 decades building businesses that affect millions of people in different parts of the Himalayan region. My teacher gave me guidance and blessings to develop skills, to benefit people and engage in the world. Today, I will share my experiences. Can we see the possibility of business to do good, to further compassion in action and positive transformation? I see many Dzogchenpas out there, and sustainability. In my path, I've had to deal with many challenges in trying to practice properly or in a meaningful way, building a Buddhist business. Some of the challenges are, how do you follow the principles yet effectively compete when other people do not? How do you attract funding or investment capital when doing good seems to cost more than just doing it without worrying about consequences? And how do you create an organization that cultivates awareness while allowing individuals to be themselves and to explore themselves and become more fully? So this is what we have tried to do with mountain hazelnuts in Bhutan, combining what we think of as best practices in science and horticulture, and also the right practices in management and business, with wisdom and a wisdom tradition. Not easy, but essential and important for doing something right. My path and my career education has taken me through the world of banking, investments, and very big business before I felt ready to create and compete in the world effectively 27 years ago. So this is our wellness center in rural Bhutan with a great Kempo, Kempo Katayana Rinpoche, who is giving teachings to our team. How do we combine tradition and practice? And I'm symbolizing that with the temple in the background, the Hakang, and hazelnut, because this is a business that we've developed, growing hazelnuts to achieve many objectives. Our context in Bhutan is primarily in the mountains, working with communities, families, with meditators, monasteries, nunneries. And it's an area that has lots of migration. People are moving away, moving to the city because there are few opportunities. And that has been destroying the fabric of society and communities and families. It also has put the living tradition of Buddhism at risk. In that area, in those communities, the Nakpas, men and women practitioners who often do retreat while their partner or their sisters or brothers support each other. That's something which is really precious and special and goes back more than 1,000 years. And the environment, while much of it is pristine, some of it has been subject to deforestation and erosion. How do we help that area and create sources of income that has a positive impact on the environment? From a Buddhist perspective, these things require many different considerations. Our vision is to create a business that brings positive influence and positive energy for everything in the environment, all living beings, and also preserves the tradition. And in doing so, we wanted to create an organization which is meaningful, which is inclusive, which provides opportunity for people within and without, that has a shared sense of ownership for everybody. On the other hand, one that is really performance oriented, one that can succeed in a competitive world and can do this at scale. And one that fulfills the needs and hopes of all the different stakeholders. That means hazelnut growers. It means the employees. It means different partners who provide services. It means the government. And it means investors, international investors in our case. So that really starts with a foundation or a basis. And for us, preparing the mind is essential. We often talk about preliminary practices or ngundro. We do that to establish a clear and consistent platform. And this sitting practice establishes common values. Also, it's a basic skill, and it enables people to engage together and to be able to step away from their egos, as all of you know. We have a company culture which is transparent. All the tables are the same, all the chairs are the same, and we have an active altar. You can see the offering bowls. That is part of the office. When visitors come, ministers of state, important leaders come, they will always ask me, Mr. Chairman, where do you sit? Where are your chambers? And it's inconceivable that my table is the same as everybody else's, but it actually works. That is a challenge in some ways to local culture, and there's a lot of hierarchy in Bhutan. But we find that this is liberating for each other, and we often wear uniforms, but we don't have to. And that also frees us from thinking about how do we look. Another way that we break from the local context is by providing opportunities on different levels for women in areas that they maybe haven't been able to explore before. For example, we have about 200 field extension officers. Many of these are women. We provide them motorcycles, and we provide them handheld computers so that they can provide reports wherever they go. Lots of digital information these days. When we did motorcycle training locally, the police told us to stop and said, you can train men, but you can't train women. It wasn't until we had a representative of the royal family, a woman who had great insight, who spoke with the local authorities and said, actually, the women need this training also, and they can do the job just as well. And they became good motorcycle riders, and they have fewer accidents than the men. So it makes us delighted. So bringing in these different unconventional allies and showing people what possibilities are, we find as part of the practice. I'd like to tell you about our colleague Pema Doma, who joined us about 10 years ago. And when she joined us, she was a single mother of 3 daughters. She had her first child in her early teens. She was a strong worker in the nursery, but she had different aspirations and hopes. We were offering training in plumbing to the company, and she raised her hand. And the men running that department said, you're a woman, we're only training men. My co-founder, who happens to be a woman, intervened and said, of course she can get training in plumbing. And she became a good plumber and did a number of plumbing projects in our facilities. When we offered electrical training, there was the same issue. And the men said, women really shouldn't learn electrical training. And of course, Pema learned how to, she got her training and was able to make lots of contributions, but she prefers to help grow young trees. And with all the other workers in the nursery, she says mantras when she plants every single small sapling. She's starting a 3-year retreat later this year. She's saved up during her 10 years working with us. And so she'll be entering retreat in about 2 months. This is an integration for us of practice as a business and practice with your spiritual path. Our business, in some ways, is a shared prayer. We have transparency with our objectives, and we have transparency in reviewing performance, individual performance and group performance. The only way that you can improve is with clarity and openness and working with each other and working with your body, your mind, your heart, your speech. We try to integrate all of this in our development. We also try to integrate into our community. One of our facilities is in the mountains around 2,300 meters high. It's alongside Ngatsang Monastery, an old monastery that has 35 young monks and a number of teachers. They had extra land, which they offered to us because they believed in our mission. And we built the largest hazelnut upland nursery in the world. This can hold about 1.2 million trees. And their objective was helping communities, and they knew that our work was going to do what they believed in. So they said, you can transform our land as you wish, and when you no longer need it, in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, then you can return it to us. And please just plant a hazelnut orchard for us so we can help support ourselves. Their Kempo, the abbot, comes over and teaches our team and teaches about the benefit spiritually of planting trees and what mantras to say as our team tends to these very small plantlets, which will grow into plants that we can distribute to our farmer partners. We give the trees at no cost to the farmers, but under a form of cooperation where we work with them for 30 years. We know that they're not in a position to afford to buy the trees. They invest their land and their commitment to take care of the trees and to harvest and sell us the nuts. We guarantee to buy their nuts forever and to pay them a good market price. This way we work together and we build a cooperation throughout the mountains of the country. This is another cooperation with a spectacular mountain monastery called Sumtrang, which is about 3,000 meters in the mountains. Sumtrang has a wonderful story. My colleague who spoke earlier today, Sonam Nyenda, is actually from this special place. The retreat center and temple were founded about 800 years ago. Many great masters, including Pema Lingpa, lived and practiced there or in nearby caves just above. Sonam's father, Sumtrang Choje Lam Jamso, is the lineage holder. With him, we have a virtual cooperation that helps support Sumtrang and the nunnery, which is based there now. They have land down the valley where we have built one of our processing centers. The lease fees, the rent that we pay, goes to support the operations of the temple and its upkeep. The abbot's requirement, the lineage holder's special requirement, was that during the time of their special annual rituals or pujas, we bring the fruit that grows in the local fruit trees up to the monastery so that we can jointly generate merit. And this is something that our colleagues love because they get to participate spiritually, both in their work and in the local community. This is the famous Takila Monastery, where Dzongtsar Khenze Rinpoche provided the Rinchen Terze initiations, the full cycle for 5 months, a few years ago. It's located about 4 hours drive into the mountains from where we are. When Rinpoche was doing the initiations, we would regularly send our colleagues up there to have blessings and to participate. And they came up with the idea of helping plant an orchard for the monastery. And here you see 15 monks who are planting trees. Jointly with them, we planted 3,000 trees in a large orchard, which will provide income to the monastery. This is a way of integrating a business with community and spiritual practice. We commit to buy all of their nuts, and they will make a profit, and the company will make a profit. Employees, investors will benefit the nation will benefit from this also. This is a nun, Ani Chuyingdoma, and she is a strong, charismatic woman who has done 3-year retreat and brings other nuns into long retreats. She has developed her own hazelnut orchards working with us, again, to generate hazelnut earnings to support nuns who go into retreat. We provide technical support and work with her closely. And for us, the whole team, we feel like we are generating merit whenever we engage with her. But of course, in a business like this, what happens as the trees start growing up is income starts coming in and people participate and share. Bhutan is an environment which is very collaborative and everybody is interconnected. So the idea of having a business separate from the people just doesn't exist. To be successful, you need to work together. You need to integrate. And so that's what we do as a business. I'm going to give you a little more background about how we operate and what the vision is. Mountain Hazelnuts now is one of the biggest companies in the country, probably the biggest private sector employer in Bhutan. We have more than 11,000 orchards throughout the country. We're in 19 out of 20 districts, probably something like 65,000 people are involved in looking after the orchards. But in addition to the orchards, there are many entrepreneurs, people with small companies, women and men who've started businesses to supply services, whether it's driving trucks or goods such as food to feed our teams, or technical skills. So there are probably 1,200 small businesses involved, and that all drives different family groups and communities. So there's a rich involvement with the country and with the business. Our vision is to plant a total of 10 million trees. And this is to provide income and the environmental benefits. And those include sequestering carbon. We think we'll sequester about 8 million tons of CO2 equivalent. And for those of you interested in that world of carbon and environment, that creates a valuable benefit that we can share with our grower partners. They will get all the proceeds when we sell those carbon credits in the international market. Eventually, we'll be producing about 40,000 tons of hazelnuts per year. And these are hazelnuts, most of which are grown organically because the country is committed to organic production. We've already seen many communities and local institutions regaining strength from our engagement. And that is our hope for families and for local traditions to be strengthened and for people to have opportunity and not have to leave to go to the city and try to find that rare job. Because in fact, Bhutan does not have a big active industrial kind of economy. It has relatively fewer jobs. It has more traditional areas and it has tourism. Our objective is that this will create ripple effects throughout the country and that growth will take place and that we create a model for the transition from growing to feed yourself to growing to both feed yourself and make some cash income, because there is now a cash economy. That is reality. It's important to grow food for yourself. In fact, we train our people and support all of our colleagues to grow food together to feed themselves. And in many ways, we reduce the dependence on meat by growing vegetables together. But our greater objectives are how can we benefit people and the environment? And frankly, Bhutan, which is such a precious place for the Himalayan traditions of Buddhism, um, preserving these and reinforcing practice, providing the means so that people can seriously engage in do their retreats or do whatever they want to express themselves and explore. That is what we find deeply meaningful. I'll come back and make this personal again. For me, when I started off, I had lots of dualistic notions about business. Is it good or is it bad? And wrestling with, should I be back in retreat? Should I be wearing robes or having a simple life, eating one meal a day like I used to? Or should I be part of the world of rough and tumble, scary people? And it was very difficult for me. Lots of questioning and dualism about us and them. And I realized, of course, in the process that we are all together. But it is an ongoing process. And I am still learning, and we are learning together. Personally, I'm fortunate that I work together with my wife because she teaches me so much. It's really wonderful to have, as a man, for me to be able to have a different perspective alongside me. But that's for me personally. But I am learning, and I welcome insights and ideas from any of you. So I hope to stay in touch. And I want to thank you so much for joining today. Thank you so much.
So now we can start with our question and answer sessions. The first question is for Dr. Sonam Nyenda, and it is, did Bhutan ever came across any difficulty in applying the pillars and domains of the gross national happiness? If so, how were these overcome?
Thank you very much, Professor Jacomella, for the question. Um, as I think most academics and scholars within the circle of Bhutan studies would know that there are four pillars for gross national happiness. Of course, it's philosophically, it's like quite pleasing to hear it, but practically sometimes it is very difficult to implement. But what Bhutan does today is Bhutan is using GNH as the principle or the guiding principle of development activities. So in the field of environment, in the field of culture, in the field of economy, and also good governance. So as I have mentioned in my presentation briefly, um, there is a office set in the capital called the Gross National Happiness Commission, and every time any government or any agencies try to initiate developmental activities, this office screens out the activities whether and sees whether it is aligned with the idea and principle of gross national happiness. So, but then, of course, we are also facing so many problems still, practically. For example, um, for example, sometimes it is also. Let me just tell you an example. 2 years back, there was there was a issue about a a traditional costume called rachu, and rachu is a kind of a fabric that women wear for their formal occasions, and there are different patterns for that. And traditionally, for ordinary women, they have a very simpler kind of a pattern. And but then today, the culture has developed and evolved, and then many women choose to wear more elaborate fabric for their rachus. And then the Department of Culture um, issued a Department of Culture wanted the ordinary women to wear the traditional ordinary rachu, but then women are not willing to wear that because time has changed, and then every women also want to look pretty. And this is because I think sometimes um, when we implement the um, rules, it is um, we need to also take care of, because we think that uh, most people think that culture in a sense of like every time like need to be traditional, and like the concept of evolution of culture is not there. So sometimes this kind of things happens, and then in the practical like ways. So of course the principle, of course we try as much as possible to blend everything into the idea and philosophy of gross national happiness, but there are sometimes certain kind of difficulties in practical grounds too.
And if I can add just one experience that we had when we started our business and we came to Bhutan, and we had already met with the different relevant ministries: Ministry of Agriculture and Forests, Ministry of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance, and so on. And after they had already given their approval, we had to present to the Gross National Happiness Commission, which had the overarching perspective. And they took a really detailed view on what are the short and long term, what are the subtle and gross impacts. And they did a very detailed analysis, quite sophisticated perspective. And they ended up giving us some useful guidance in how we could fine tune our business model before we signed our memorandum of understanding with the government about 11 years ago. So it actually works as a practical example. We came as the first 100% foreign investment into the country, and they had to look at a lot of new concepts, but did so and embraced them after very detailed scrutiny.
Mhm.
Yes, thank you. Quite interesting. And now I have a question for Daniel. And as a Buddhist practitioner, what are personal challenges in building a Buddhist business? And this could be linked with another question that I have also for Daniel, which is how individual personal aspirations are reconciled within the needs of the company. What are the main elements for keeping high motivation?
Mm. Yeah, both great questions. First, as an entrepreneur forming the company together with my wife and then with a leadership team, one of the challenges, of course, is how to develop and lead a vision while maintaining your perspective and the right view, uh, maintaining clarity about ego in the business world where, frankly, ego is often very important. You need a strong sense of self or sense of entity. Um, and also, given this moving more into how do you develop, um, uh, we have a wide group of individuals who join us as employees or as stakeholders, as farmers. But in particular, with the employees, how do we help them to explore and develop their potential? So there are a number of business practices which are now prevalent, which do fit in, I would say, in a Buddhist society. So, and from a Buddhist perspective, things like 360-degree evaluations, where people give you perspective on yourself and insights on how you can become more effective and more completely yourself. And then it also includes different kinds of practices to challenge yourself and overcome your self-conceptions. Some of those are quite simple and foundational, like doing mental practices, including meditation, which is optional. After you receive training, you need to receive the basic training. And after that, if you want to continue, it's up to you. Um, but some physical training also we find is really useful. People often start with a fixed vision of what they can do with their bodies. And men and often women have this idea. And I guess I want to fine tune a comment I made before. Um, Bhutan is relatively pro women, or more gender neutral than most countries around the world. But there are some very specific areas where people tend to think maybe a man shouldn't do that, or maybe a woman shouldn't do that. Perhaps less so than in many places. Hopefully, we're getting more liberated everywhere about this. Um, but sometimes challenging people about preconceptions is important, and those preconceptions can, in some ways, break down the view of what you are yourself. But one of the big challenges in starting a business that's Buddhist is to find um, either mentors or models that are relevant. And so I really want to thank Professor and the organizers for taking an integrative view where you bring together scholars, practitioners of different kinds, educators, um, and this view about economy, because we really need to combine together and think in a pragmatic way about how to do these things. You need practical skills to build a business at scale. This is many tens of millions of dollars of investment, and all the challenges of running a business and how to do that practically at scale. Although you can build small businesses also that are sometimes just as fulfilling, maybe even more so. Thank you.
So thank you so much. I think we have arrived to the end of our webinars, and now it's time for me to thank everybody. So first of all, I would like to thank you both for having joined us. It was a very interesting, and we don't know so much I think in the West, we don't know so much about Bhutanese economy or this Bhutanese experiment. So it was very, very interesting, I think, for all the people who were connected. And now it's time for me to thank all the persons who made this event possible. And it was, I think, a great result because we had more than 3,000 persons connecting during all the webinars. So 3,000 persons, that's quite an amazing number of persons. And so I would like to thank all the speakers of the 5 panels and the Italian Agency for Cooperation and Development and the Italian organization Asia NGO. Its director Andrea Dell'Angelo and the chief of the project Distinti ma non distanti Lorenza Sebastiani and all the staff, and the University of Naples, the Orientale, its rectors, and the director of the Department of Asian, African, and Mediterranean Studies, where our Center for Buddhist Studies is in bed, and our translator Raffaella Rammairone, and all the staff of Tecnomedit, in particular Rita Cristallo and Enzo De Masi, were very, very great job of organization, and the staff of Orientale, Mariano Cinque, who did the graphics, and our communication staff, Biagio De Risi and Davide Citarelli. To all these people, my helpful thanks. Thank you so much for this opportunity we had to collaborate all together, to see our interdependencies, and thank you to everybody and goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.